Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post. Hollywood nonprofits are kind of concerned because, I first heard this story and I thought to myself, why would they really be concerned? What's the big deal? Everyone's thinks that they are at the center of the universe. Like the world revolves around this Hollywood nonprofit or those Hollywood people. Of course, no one cares what these people think. But it's not what they think. It's what they do. And I'm not quite sure why they're drawing so much attention to themselves if they're trying to get out ahead of something that they know is coming down the line. But these Hollywood nonprofits are probably going to lose their nonprofit status the same way that Harvard looks like they could very well lose their nonprofit status. Because what they're doing is against the law. It's illegal racism. It started with the Oscars so white nonsense, and it's ended recently with quotas on film and TV productions, with an accreditation system that says you have to have a certain quota of a certain skin color of actors and sexual preferences to even be considered for an Oscars award. It's gone way too far. And it feels like something is definitely brewing, and these guys want to try to get ahead of it. That's the only reason I can possibly think of why they would draw attention to themselves like this, because what they've been doing is very wrong. It's very damaging to the culture. It ruins people's lives because people that work and actually meritoriously deserve Oscars can't even acquire one because they're the wrong skin color or the wrong sexual preference. But it's not like a war or something, so why draw attention to yourselves? From The Hollywood Reporter, Harvard was first. Hollywood could be next. Threats to revoke tax exemptions for trade groups and nonprofits in the entertainment industry could be used as a bartering chip for the administration to get what it wants. Or the administration could say, hey, look, get right with the law or you're going to lose your nonprofit status, or maybe it just gets pulled and you have to start paying back taxes that you otherwise wouldn't have to pay. Earlier this month, chatter surfaced of those in President Donald Trump's orbit suggesting to Warner Brothers Discovery that it could curry favor with the administration by giving Donald Trump Jr. a hunting or fishing show. The story there was people were contacting the Trump administration, or Trump, not the administration, but Trump world, people that hang out around Mar-a-Lago and saying, hey, look, how could Warner Brothers get in better shape with the administration? They have CNN. They know they're attacking the administration constantly. It's all one-sided. It's CNN except for Scott Jennings. So how could Warner Brothers better their position with the White House? So supposedly someone said, well, why don't you try to give Donald Trump Jr. a hunting or a fishing show? Because they also have Discovery, and you know what? It would probably do really, really well. But now that's being used against him because everything gets used against him. Whether or not that was a mere trial balloon or a suggestion, the type of soft power at play is one of Hollywood's main assets. That's one way giant companies that own studios can now wield influence and bend if needed for politically expedient purposes. Melania is also pretty popular. I haven't seen the documentary, but if it's come out already, I'm sure it's good and I'm sure it was popular. But when Trump threatened Harvard University's tax-exempt status last week, after the school rebuffed his administration's demands for a series of policy changes, it became apparent that it could be leveraged as another weapon in his arsenal to get what he wants out of the entertainment and media industries. Why are the entertainment and media industries dependent on nonprofit tax organizations? Does that make any sense? What good are they actually doing in the world that their activities should be considered tax-free activities, and that if you donate to them, you should have some tax advantage for giving these organizations money? What's the basis for that? Well, here's the basis. Hollywood leads on a network of trade groups and associations representing various segments of the business. These include unions, guilds, and professional organizations that advocate and promote the interests of its members. At the forefront, the Academy of Motion Picture and Arts and Sciences and the Recording Academy. The organization behind the Oscars and the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures is a tax-exempt 501c6, which covers trade associations. It hasn't been immune to the ongoing period of contraction across Hollywood, laying off some of its own workforce last year as part of a larger restructuring. And while it saw TV ratings for the Academy Awards broadcast surge to a post-pandemic high, the numbers suggest that revenue associated with the Oscars may be slowing, with real uncertainty about what the license fees will look like when either it negotiates a new broadcast deal with Disney or seeks to take the awards program elsewhere. Overall, revenue is down, exacerbated by the leveling off of the Academy Museum after a hot start. So they can't generate revenue legitimately, so they need donations. and they don't want to pay taxes on them. Here's how much they could lose. The Academy losing its tax-exempt status will cost it tens of millions of dollars in the long run. If it was revoked last year, the group would have had to pay taxes on revenue of $15.3 million for 2024 and capital gains of $66.7 million also in 2024. That's a lot of money. If they would have to pay taxes, that would be money that we are not subsidizing them for with our tax dollars as tax-paying U.S. citizens. For right now, the money they don't have to pay comes out of our pockets to subsidize them. Trump's clash with Harvard is the latest turn in his sweeping bid to purge woke ideology across the government, private sector, and academia. The entertainment industry has been targeted too, with companies across Hollywood rolling back diversity, equity, and inclusion programs under the administration's position that they violate civil rights laws. A lot of that is just being done because it does not work. They produce things that people don't want to see. Shows, movies, content, things that they spend millions of dollars to make that nobody wants to see. In addition to that, yes, they're getting challenged legally for discriminating against people by pushing DEI. But the thing that really started the pullback was that people just weren't interested in the race-baiting nonsense content. Conservatives have taken issue with what they consider pandering to certain audiences by advancing certain narratives that exclude straight white men and suppress their viewpoints. Well, they do exclude straight white men and they do suppress their viewpoints, but it's not that they're so offended by it that Hollywood started saying, oh, we're sorry, we didn't mean to offend you and we want to respect all of our customers. They never said that. It's just that they failed one after another, one project after another. Failure, failure, failure. And at some point, Hollywood had to take notice and reverse course. It's the same thing as this tax status issue. They can say they care about this, they want to promote that, they're doing inclusion this. It all does eventually just come down to money. That's all they care about, their own power, their own influence, and their own money. Members of the Tax-Free Academy have been critical of that line of criticism. In 2017, Warren Beatty nodded to it in his presentation of the Best Picture nominees, observing that those films, of which Barry Jenkins' Moonlight emerged as the winner, show us the increasing diversity in our community and our respect for diversity and freedom all over the world. It's interesting that they would pick an example from, say, 2017. Like, wasn't that about 8 years ago? Do you have anything recent where anyone put their neck out and said, yeah, this makes sense, we should be doing more of this? Sure, a couple of people say it here and there, but people do understand it is a non-viable commercial project when you make the commercial project based on diversity, equity, and inclusion. If Trump decides to ignore federal laws that are no doubt unconstitutional, because just because you have a law, it doesn't make it constitutional, the executive branch has the right to use the executive branch, and the executive at the top is not limited from firing people in the executive branch, directing DOJ investigations, directing IRS investigations. Whether or not Trump decides to do it, it's within his Article 2 authority. But if he decides to conduct tax investigations targeted at specific groups, it could embolden his circle to do the same with trade groups and nonprofits to the entertainment sector. I don't think it's that big a thing to ask to say if you want nonprofit status, if you want that benefit of operating your operation, you need to follow the law. No racism, no discrimination, no illegal quota systems. Follow the law like everyone else. Otherwise, at the very least, no, we don't want to subsidize your operation and have you not pay taxes so that the rest of the United States can pay taxes so that you can operate and keep all of your money and not share it with the rest of the government the way everyone else has to. Quote, they would love to make an example out of Hollywood, says Edward McCaffrey, professor of tax policy at USC Gould School of Law. If you give Trump and his acolytes a tool, they're going to use it. Unlike charities, the Film and Recording Academies are allowed to engage in politics as a 501c6, but it can't be the bulk of their work. Under the tax code that governs exemptions, political activity is defined exclusively as supporting and opposing candidates for public office. Legal experts observe that it'd be a losing proposition for the government to argue the trade groups, which don't make endorsements, aren't mostly focused on their objectives of advancing the appreciation of movies and music. If one sharp person in the current administration decides they want to go after these nonprofits that are pushing racial quotas and excluding white people from being able to get awards or straight people from being able to get certain awards, If a film production doesn't include a certain amount of what they call inclusion, if someone wants to pursue that legally in the DOJ Civil Rights Division, they're going to be successful, and it's not going to take them very long. Quote, I don't hear them going around saying that this candidate is better than another. That's all that counts, says Ro-Chan Louie, who specializes in teaching about nonprofits at UCLA School of Law. I don't see that leading to the revocation of their tax-exempt status. It'll be a surprise, just like that expression. Possible violation of civil rights law will be the wild card. In 1970, the IRS implemented a policy barring tax-exempt status for private schools engaged in racial discrimination. And the Supreme Court years later upheld the agency's decision to strip Bob Jones University's tax status because tax-exempt institutions must serve a public purpose and not be contrary to established public policy. Bob Jones University then continued in its private status, and then I think it was 2017, they came back, changed their policy, and then got their tax status back. Their racial policy that was inappropriate had to do with criticizing and limiting the access of people that are in interracial relationships. The administration has suggested that DEI programs illegally discriminate against straight white men, which of course they do, and Asians as well, and we know what's going on there. And legally, that could form the basis of stripping the film and recording academies of their tax-exempt statuses. It would also completely embarrass them, and they would lose tremendous amounts of legitimacy, and they'd be forced to turn around, apologize, admit their wrongdoing to get anywhere near getting their tax statuses back. Unlike entertainment giants who've complied with the government's position on the issue by rolling back diversity policies, they appear to have mostly maintained initiatives and goals that fall under that umbrella. One example, the Film Academy maintains standards requiring nominated movies to meet certain levels of diversity, explicitly mentioning certain racial and ethnic groups. Absolutely ridiculous discrimination that could not be considered legal. The Recording Academy also remains committed to advancing DEI initiatives. Last year, it launched DREAM, Diversity Reimagined by Engaging All Music Makers Network, which spotlights the work of creators from groups such as the Black Music Collective, Indigenous Peoples Network, and Academy Proud, among others. I mean, you could just say no white people singing. You could just say that and it would cover all of your groups. Why are you guys so embarrassed to do that? Eventually, left unchecked, as these people continue to get worse and worse from the hashtag Oscars so white nonsense they were doing years ago, that is where this would have gone. Quote, there's a body of law that says a tax-exempt organization cannot be violating public policy, Chan Louie says. But a lot of practitioners would say that this administration's interpretation doesn't make it a policy. The courts will decide, though the answer isn't as clear-cut as it appears. Diversity programs that require companies to hire applicants from certain racial or ethnic groups have been legally tenuous for years because they're on their face completely illegal. You can have a great objective of saying, I only want to hire 19-year-old people that have this specific skin color or 22-year-old people that have that specific sexual preference, and then ask everyone about their sexual preferences to make sure that you're really only hiring the kind of people that you want to have around you for whatever your purposes might really be. Maybe you even have good intentions. Of course that's illegal, you ridiculous individuals. It's become even more obvious how illegal this is since the Supreme Court struck down affirmative action in a 2023 ruling that implicated race-conscious DEI initiatives in the private sector. There's a reason why several of these policies no longer explicitly mention race, often using read-between-the-lines placeholders like underrepresented, underserved, or unique perspectives. Another possible target is nonprofits, specifically those that promote causes Trump has been hostile against, like immigration and the environment. Quote, there's a legitimate concern, says Social Impact Fund executive Craig Sitchie, who previously was a program officer for philanthropic services at the Entertainment Industry Foundation, Hollywood's original major fiscal sponsor that was founded in 1942. Quote, when elected officials appear to target nonprofits based on the causes they support, whether in areas like immigration, climate, or equity, or you could call it racism, it can affect both organizations and the willingness of donors and institutional funders to support those efforts. And I did another video on this subject recently where Hollywood nonprofits were saying they are not getting donations. A lot of them are having to lay people off and shut down. And this is why. It's completely illegal and poisonous. And anyone who participates in this kind of racism poison nonsense is making a target of themselves because it really is against the law to do these kinds of things. I'm not your lawyer. I can't give you this kind of advice legally, but I'm telling you, we do have laws to protect people's rights in the United States. For Trump, winning these potential cases is almost beside the point. His playbook involves drowning rivals in legal fees, and if it's a battle of deeper pockets, he stands to win. Trump has already extracted nearly $1 billion in free legal services from elite law firms. This administration already has news organizations, universities, and private companies yielding to its demands. It's easy to see why. Prosecutors will go after entertainment giants, many of which have publications under their corporate umbrellas, for adversarial coverage. And regulators will be hesitant to greenlight the sink or swim mergers they're chasing, like Paramount's new merger. There will be fewer law firms willing to defend them. Amid this landscape, it's becoming tougher to envision any opposition from gaining meaningful traction. Accountability is coming for all these guys. They know what they've done. They know it's absolutely wrong. They know they've been getting away with it, and they know that's about to end forever. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.